All right. Up and running, in theory. Start by muting myself. Edit video. Come out here. Live. Monetization on. Finish loading. Okay. And control room. Oh, wow. Josh is back to being first. Live chat. All right, now the wait begins. Anybody watching the recording afterwards? Nope, sorry, Andrew. Josh beat you. Anybody watching the recording afterwards, as usual, you can skip the first 10 minutes or so if you want until we officially start. But I will still be talking about stuff in between now and then. And if you hear a roaring sound coming through the mic, that is the new AC that finally arrived and has been put in my room now. And it is far, far more powerful than the previous one was. So praise God for that, especially. This thing can apparently, whereas the old one would, when it was like 90 or lower 90s in Fahrenheit outside, it would be able to fight off the 90s for about 12 degrees or so. Like if it was 90 or 91, it could keep the room at like 78. Whereas this thing, when it was like 90 something the other day, I set it to 72 and it didn't have to fight the 90s. It took it an hour or so, but it actually cooled my room all the way down to 72 while it was 90 degrees outside. So it is immensely powerful. Oh man, people are coming in fast. What? Get get off my screen! I don't want to explore Google Earth. I just want to use the thing. Get off my screen. Fine, I'll click on your stupid explore button. Get out. Get out. How many times do I have to click X? Get out. Ugh, you stupid thing. And if you're wondering why I have to have an AC in my room when I am from Alaska, that's because, for the few who don't know, unfortunately, I am in exile because 2020 happened. And unlike many more fortunate people, I did not get my job back after 2020 happened. So I'm I have to live down here in the regular U.S. with my family, as my income from all of this, the YouTube stuff and everything, is not at the level that would permit me to independently return back home. However, it is climbing thanks to you guys, especially Patreon just passed $70 a month for the first time ever, or at least assumably, if the recent people who signed on, if this month rolls over and their charges go through, then it will have officially passed that area. But what else did we need to get up in the meantime here? What else do we need? I should probably have this open. Oh, yeah, I should check to see if I moved the Ecuador thing in here. Probably not. Probably gonna have to look it up again. All right. I'm gonna have to go hunting for it because I apparently deleted it unintentionally like a stupid moron. Unless, did I accidentally put it in data caps? It would be at the absolute bottom. Nope. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go hunting for the Ecuador thing later. If I decide to include that, or if I decide that it's like critical to completely show it. Excuse me. And again, while we're waiting the initial 10 minutes for everybody to show up, no, not those ones. For those who did not know already, I've begun several new projects instead of just making like videos and these stream podcast episode things. I'm also making these maps where I show the area of a country or an offshore shelf area that has already been explored for oil and gas, whether or not anything was found there. And so usually I'll gray out the area that would not harbor any oil and gas, and the area that has already been explored, like for this one, for example, is offshore Angola. The area that's already been explored is shaded in red, and I actually have to update this map because this area right down here has also recently been explored. That's where some stuff was found, and this area right here, I believe, offshore this little bump. So I've been making these, and where was the other one? Oh yeah, I have not updated it in the doc yet because I have a lot of these pasted in a Google Doc that you can see. I have not updated it in the doc yet, or I haven't posted this updated version, but I did update this North Sea map because more stuff has recently been explored. And so, like the most recent oil and gas field maps I was looking at that would delineate, what has and hasn't been explored, are usually only as recent as about 2 or 3 years old. So stuff that has been explored in like the last 2 or 3 years, I was just finding out about, which includes a lot of this stuff up here, further west off of these islands. So that's now on the list, along with some more stuff up here. And this bump of non-explored area is getting narrower and narrower in there. And I do believe exploration in here in this most central portion is currently ongoing. So I will upload the updated version of that eventually. And also, as promised, I will show you. I was supposed to take screenshots of them for caps so that I wouldn't have to go through all this trouble, but I was dumb and forgot. So, is it number 4? Yes, it is. Okay. So, as I promised I would do, I have been making my own graphs for the oil consumption levels of different countries that shows like a lot more of the individual monthly, month by month fluctuations and stuff. So I'll combine those with the usual longer term ones that I show on the oil demands videos. But I have been making these, and I've got a few so far. Like I've got Germany or Deutschland, Turkey, Japan, India, which may soon become Bahrat, and Algeria, along with China or Zhongguo, and Mexico and Rosia, which I may have to update these because some stuff has changed. But I have been working on all this. Uh, So you no longer just have my I promise. Now you actually can see it. I am actually constructing all of this like I promised I would do. We'll go in here so I can have all this stuff ready to scroll through. All right. So we'll have all that ready. Who's here? Oh, got up to 11. And then people realized that they would have to have patience and wait a few more minutes. So then they left. Oh, yeah. Josh gets the direct source. I love how I love how Josh probably sent this text reply to me instantaneously, but my phone still says I only received it like 5 minutes after he sent it. But blah 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 blah. I'm not. If you mean like Like, if you mean like overpopulation, I'm not horrendously concerned in that way because we're not going to make it to that point anyways. Uh, that's one of my current calls based on observing everything is that the global population, the real one, not the one that's shown on population clocks that only get their algorithms updated once every 10 years, which is what the mainstream news media bases their like reports on, the world hit this population level on, is they literally just go to Google. Oh no, sorry, Google already is Google. They literally just go to Google and look at the worldometer population clock, which is it's literally just running on a preset algorithm permanently, and they literally just look at the worldometer population clock, and when they see it hits a certain number, they'll report that as like actual reality instead of like looking at going through various databases and stuff like I spend all of my supposedly spare time or free time doing. Just in case any of you thought I had free time. Hold on a second. I think someone's banging on the door. There should not be anyone there. I'm gonna go look. Okay, sorry about that. There was no one there, as I suspected, and as I prefer there to be. Although there were teenagers outside earlier, which are the bane of my existence. So, I don't know, they might be running around, like, screwing around and banging on walls or something. All right, let me take a chug of some water, and then we're gonna get started for real. All right. Anybody else for me? No. Okay. So, uh, doing some warm-up stuff while we wait, as like the extra bonus 5 minutes or so for people to show up. Indonesia is getting another economic boost as they're again one of the world's primary sources of nickel, which is one of the critical components of EV batteries, and also the stupid grid batteries that people have become obsessed with and somehow think are a functional solution to humanity's problems when they're not. But Indonesia is now, instead of just supplying the nickel, originally nickel ore, now refined nickel because a bunch of nickel refineries, smelteries have been built in Indonesia. So they're actually exporting and selling refined nickel. And it's really not clarifying the image as I'm zooming in like it should be. So how funny, since, when we first opened Google Earth, it said this was a new enhanced updated version, yet it's more sucky than the previous version was. Awesome. Just awesome. So now, on top of one that was already being constructed there, another major EV battery manufacturing plant is actually being built in Indonesia, so that now double the amount of the actual end product EV batteries themselves will be built in the country, and Indonesia will get the primary financial benefits from like the full price end products of the stuff their resources are otherwise supplying the construction of. Not that the EV batteries are, a good or a smart thing, because the whole EV route is not really the way out of anything. And the AC just fired up again. So you might hear that, you might not. No one ever said they heard the last one, but I think this one's a little bit louder. Oh, and yeah, while we're there, to the surprise of no one, even more natural gas was discovered just this past week offshore of Western slash Northwestern Australia. So from the Timor Sea down to this bit off of Exmouth down here, this whole semi-slopey shelf is just loaded with natural gas. And Australia is up to, at the moment, around 15 billion cubic feet per day. Their total capacity is 16. However, one or two of their major fields is currently offline for offshore maintenance work. So once that's done in the really immediate future, probably the next few weeks or the next month or two, they'll jump back up above 16 billion cubic feet per day. And the amount that's been explored of that whole area is not a lot. It's, I think, only around 25% so far. So there is going to be quite a lot more natural gas coming from Australia. Oh, and I guess we'll just keep on running with the oil and gas exploration stuff. So, uh, currently producing nothing and has produced nothing over the course of its history, oil and gas wise. Uruguay up here has now opened. Technically, this is like the second time they've now opened their offshore area for the moment, not their onshore yet, but they have opened their offshore area for oil and gas exploration, and roughly 40% of it was purchased in the block auctions by some of the majors, like I believe ConocoPhillips and Total took most of it, and I think Shell took another area. But they already did offer their stuff once before. However, unfortunately, that was in 2013, and then in 2014, the oil price collapse happened. If you are not familiar with the oil price history, show you real quick. Go out to at least 25 years. Yeah, so in everything was like, going full speed for a while, but then in 2014, the oil price crash happened and it became prolonged up until post 2020. And so, yeah, after that, after the 2014 price collapse happened, everyone basically canceled their interest in not just offshore Uruguay, but also a lot of other stuff. So that basically got scrapped until now. Now everybody's interested in, again, and also offshore stuff or further offshore stuff is now also beginning offshore of Argentina, offshore of Tierra del Fuego, my favorite Argentine province. They are now exploring this general shelf area right off here, and they've already found a few things so far this year. The total amounts and thus, the calculatable expected potential production values have not been fully analyzed yet. And also, more stuff was just found by Total off of Suriname. For Suriname, primarily just this area right here, because you have to imagine their maritime border coming out like this. Just this area off of here has been explored, and they, with all the stuff that was stacked up for them, it was already expected Their first like thing would come online probably 2027, 2028, and the remainder would come online 2029, 2030, and would end up with them hitting 800,000 barrels per day before then starting to decline if nothing else was discovered and nothing else brought into production. However, obviously, sharing the same thing as Guyana, more was discovered, and this is an additional field that should the final numbers haven't been like fully revised yet, but it should at its height, its initial like startup height, its initial spike into existence, give somewhere between 100 and 200,000 barrels per day. So that will put Suriname's so far total expected production peak or production height around 2031 or 2032 at between 900,000 barrels per day and 1 million barrels per day. However, it's likely going to end up being more than that. Whereas so far, Guyana's, with everything stacked up so far that's been discovered up to this point, assumed to come into production along a regularly slated timeline up through like 2035. It's expected Guyana's oil production will reach a height of either 1.7 or 1.8 million barrels per day around 2032, I believe. However, accounting for the fact that not even nearly all of Guyana's basin has been explored yet, assuming, us going off of the rates at which things have been discovered so far and, the speed of bringing it online and stuff, factoring everything in together, Guyana, for my call, for my expectation, should end up in a broad range of between 2.1 and 3.2 million barrels per day is like the full spread range I'd give for as high as they could potentially see a peak, with them more likely than not ending up on the higher end of that, like closer to three, more likely. And over here, Trinidad and Tobago, a formerly a decent enough oil and gas producer. Now they're primarily just a gas producer as they barely pump out enough oil to supply their own domestic consumption levels. They're down to oil production levels of only about 55,000 barrels a day, whereas their domestic consumption is usually between 40 and 45,000. And almost all of their area has been explored except for this thumb. Like you trace it like that, and it kind of looks like a thumbprint, and then you cut it off right here because that's where the maritime border goes out. This deeper offshore thumb area that technically belongs to them is the last unexplored bit. However, now it's uh, going to be explored as this upper 40% of it, this bit right here, has now been bought up in a block auction just this past week or two. So exploration is going to start there. And then they'll just have, the lower 60% of what I'm calling the thumb remaining. And after that, it will be like complete sunsets, producer wise, for Trinidad and Tobago. All right. Actually, look at chat like a responsible streamer. Can't hear the AC. Wow, that is surprising. I mean, that's good, but that is surprising. All right. And speaking of Guyana, so remember one of the things I told you was going to happen this decade, probably later this decade, but not guaranteed, is that we, the US, are going to end up having to crush Venezuela because Venezuela is inevitably going to attack Guyana as part of Maduro's like last strongman gasp for relevancy, and because they're getting jealous of Guyana's booming oil industry, while theirs is absolutely trashed because uh, PDSV, I think, is the acronym for Venezuela's state-owned, uh, I guess, Giga Chad communism uh, oil state-owned oil industry. PDSV absolutely sucks. It's complete trash. And that's not an inherent trait of a state-run oil industry. There are many that are really competent, like Equinor, the Norwegian one, or Saudi Aramco. As much as Saudi Arabia is a meme, Saudi Aramco, the Saudi state-run oil industry, is really competent. And not previous Sontarak, the Algerian one, but modern day Sontarak is actually a pretty competent oil and gas industry. Before the mid or later 2000s, like, back in the early 2000s and before that, it was a pretty trash, pretty incompetent company, state-run industry. Nowadays, it's actually pretty good. And also, Pemex, Mexico's state-run oil industry, is also horrifically incompetent and absolute trash. But yeah, Venezuela, I've been saying that for a few years now. Venezuela eventually is going to attack Guyana in some way, which is inevitably going to draw a reprisal response from the US, which will then be the end of what we have known Venezuela as for, the last number of decades. And whatever new Venezuela emerges out of that will, undoubtedly be one, uh, whether whether by arm twisting or by choice, that actually allows foreign oil industries into the country that can actually accomplish things to get the Orinoco Belt back online and at least get Venezuela's oil production back up to the 3 million barrels per day plateau that it's capable of. If not, then pushing full development and steam lifting of the Orinoco Belt to get it up to like the 5 or 6 million barrels per day that it's capable of. But that has now begun to become visible. After I've been saying it for a while, it has now actually started up. Where's the original stuff from like the other week? Excuse me? Hello? I clicked on this, please. Yeah. So that's not Maduro, but whatever. Venezuela, Maduro came out with a statement about how, blah, 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 like Venezuela's been trying to claim for a while. The entire western two-thirds of Guyana belongs to Venezuela. And he made a Putin slash Erdogan slash Xi Jinping slash whatever the guy who runs Azerbaijan's name is, uh, vibe-esque speech about how if Guyana doesn't give it up, then Venezuela's just going to take it from them. And then his his foreign minister, or whatever, kind of rolled it back a bit and said that no, they're going to vote on it. They're going to vote in a referendum on whether to just take it. Where was the initial threat? It was last week. It was last week. All right, fine. Do I have to go to, where is it? I have to actually dig this out. Go all the way down to, where is it? Guyana, Demerara. Excuse me, I clicked on you, please. All right, blah, blah, blah. Where was it? How far back was it? Maybe in politics? Get off my screen. Should be in politics, I would think. Ah, yeah, there we go. That's that's summoning ambassador after the threat of use of force. And I think the actual like threat speech was sometime last week. Yeah. so it was around September 22nd or 23rd or so. So they've begun their posturing for what at least I've seen as inevitable. So that is coming, which is then going to result in the end of Venezuela in the form of Venezuela as it is currently recognized. Like not as in like it's going to shatter like Russia eventually will or anything. Just that like the current regime, the current arrangement is going to cease to be in the result of this. Because also, especially the longer they wait to actually make their move on that, the higher Guyana's oil production will go, which will mean it will be becoming a greater and greater supplier of primarily us because we are where the majority of their oil ends up going. So that's only going to increase the reprisal level that they're going to be on the receiving end of. Right? Anybody? All right. Nothing requiring my response. Okay. So we've gone on enough. Anyone who was going to show up should have showed up by now. So here we go. Here we have Azerbaijan and Armenia. One is a country, and one I discovered actually, like, looking into it a little bit more than just looking at their oil and gas production. Actually, looking into stuff like, especially their national anthem. Uh, Armenia is a country. Azerbaijan is apparently a death cult. Like, if you can go look up their national anthem right now and listen to it, it's something. Like it's like beyond Imperial March type nonsense. Like it has like that like insane, like it even sounds evil. Like it has that whole dun 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 in this like really overtoned oppressive or orchestral theme. And then it actually goes into the lyrics where like, oh great motherland Azerbaijan, we will spill out all our blood for you, we'll spill out every last drop, we'll spill our blood until our bodies run dry. And then goes into uh you know stuff about purging those who don't belong, which is we kind of know what they mean by those who don't belong. uh So we also here, let me go here so I can open another page to hopefully get to uh hopefully a quicker scroll. Oh, well, here we'll start with this just to begin with. So yeah, here is 1914, just before the genocide. This was the spread of the Armenian population, and now you have the Armenian population today, which is predominantly just Armenia. There was the bit in Nagorno-Karabakh and some in southern Sakartvelo, which most people call Georgia, even though its name is not Georgia. Its name is Sakartvelo. But yeah, so Armenians have, constantly had complete, eradication attempts made on them. So they're really wary about, the Nagorno-Karabakh situation. And that is why they have been fleeing from the region after it was fully seized by Azerbaijan. And as of this morning, got when I last got like verified updates, over 70,000 in just a week have fled from Nagorno-Karabakh into regular Armenia. So that's 70,000 out of the roughly 120,000 Armenians who lived in Nagorno-Karabakh. Total population of Nagorno-Karabakh is about 140,000, but about 20,000 of those are Azeri. and then 100, about 20,000 are Azeri, and about 120,000 are or were Armenian. However, 70,000 of those 120,000 have now fled into regular Armenia. So Azerbaijan has gotten the end result they wanted for the time being, at least. They've gotten the ethnic cleansing that they were after via uh, forced voluntary, voluntary in quotation marks, forced voluntary mass exodus. And that is only the beginning because if I can find it, it shouldn't be too far down. Where was it? Was it? No. Uh, how much further was it? How much further? Why is it always further down than I think it is? Everything is always further down. Oh, no. No. Okay. Looks like we're gonna have to go through my likes. Is it under my likes? And if so, how far down is it? All right. I think the stuff. I think he made his villain speech like just before starting it, so it would have been on like the 21st or 22nd. Uh, oh look, it's crazy psycho mom, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But where is it? Where was it? How far down do I have to go? Okay, 22nd. It should be right around here. Battles continue. Happy Cat. Uh, Deputy Commanders. Was it this far down? A symbol. Come on. We can't be doing this again. It's base. The Russian base was hit. Convoy. Erdogan. Oh yeah. Well, of course. Erdogan, another certified psychopath. Is in full support of everything. Uh, not just the whole reseizure of Nagorno-Karabakh by Azerbaijan, but also Azerbaijan's other intentions. Here we go. Here was his villain speech. So there's his Aliyev. That's his name. So you can look up his villain speech. So yeah, he flat out declared that Armenia itself, not just Nagorno Karabakh, but Armenia itself belongs to Azerbaijan. So this wasn't about reclaiming rightfully Azeri land. This is just about conquest. Uh, he fully intends to just go all in on Armenia at some point. Now, I didn't have the thing liked in there where Erdogan made his new comment, where he said Erdogan basically said, he would support the invasion, only a minor one though, not like a full invasion. But he Erdogan said that it's only reasonable that Armenia give up uh, Syunik, which I believe Syunik is the most southern one. Otherwise, it's Vyots, but I think that's Vyots, and this province is Syunik. He said it's only reasonable that Armenia give up the bottom like third here, so that Azerbaijan can be whole again and be connected to the Nakhchivan province. So Erdogan and AKA Turkey with him is all for it as long as it's only this part. But in reality, Azerbaijan could decide to just like go all in and try to like actually wipe out Armenia itself, and he wouldn't care because partially that's uh, that's going to be Turkey's way in for the war that it wants with Iran, to knock Iran out and thus leave Turkey as the primary regional power in the Middle East. Despite Saudi Arabia, like, kind of wanting to play itself as a power, it really isn't. Financially, it is, but its military isn't. Saudi Arabia is a case where their military isn't actually real. Like they have the same like they have, a bunch of modern equipment from the U.S. and stuff. However, they have constantly shown a habit of uh, discoordination and breaking down in the face of actual combat. And kind of like Syria and like Russia, the one thing they can do competently is bomb hospitals and refugee camps down in Yemen. So Turkey wants to knock Iran out, and the primary modus operandi for that is going to be Azerbaijan eventually trying maybe just to seize the Syunik province of Armenia so that it can, quote unquote, be whole again and connected to Nakhchivan. And that will draw an actual response from Iran, as Iran has made it pretty clear that if Azerbaijan goes after actual Armenia, Iran will respond against Azerbaijan with full military force, which they have already prepared for. Iran has, up in this area now, moved a decent chunk of its forces that were not already stationed at bases within that area, roughly 40 to 50,000 troops, plus the associated amount of tanks and combat vehicles. Uh, not not moving like combat jets that close, obviously, because you don't bring them that close to the actual border. But it has repositioned what a fair amount of what it has within strikeable range to get ready for what it sees as inevitable. And when Iran responds against Azerbaijan, if and basically at this point, when Azerbaijan attacks, actual Armenia, then that response of Iran against Azerbaijan will draw a military response from Turkey against Iran, in which uh, Turkey, 4 to 5 odds, probably more like 7 to 8 odds, is going to win. So Iran's going to get knocked out as a regional power, and if they had not by this point already been upturned by internal uprising and upheaval, as they've come close to a couple times over the last year and a half or so, uh, the knockout from this upcoming thing will finally cement that and send them up and over into some kind of revolt and reformation. And Turkey will basically strong arm, knock out Iran into giving up these northwestern provinces to Azerbaijan because they're predominantly populated by Azeri people, and not and Iran, by all means, Iran has and still is actually oppressing the Azeri minority there. Not, but that's not that then gets used somehow in some weird juxtapositioned, like reasoning and justification for Azerbaijan eventually invading Armenia. It isn't. It is a reason to uh, enact measures independently against Iran to stop the oppression of that minority, also their oppression of the Kurds as well. But then again, everybody oppresses the Kurds. Iran oppresses them. Iraq has oppressed them up until now, but me speaking from the U.S., we kind of twisted their arm recently to get them to finally just give up. Syria also oppresses the Kurds. Assad straight up multiple times has tried to just wipe them out. Turkey, over longer history, not just the last 10 years, but over like centuries, Turkey has multiple times tried to just wipe them out, just like they did with the Armenians that used to live in Turkey, except in that case, they basically succeeded. But so that's how that's all going to spiral in a rough layout, in like a rough estimation of it, and the slight order of things. And again, uh, not that I'm not saying like official borders will like change as a result of that or anything. Like, whether or not something gets, internationally recognized or not, is irrelevant to the way that I'm like speaking about it, to the way that I'm phrasing it. But that's how that's going to go about. And Turkey will partially, another thing that they like gain from that strategically, other than even more secure transport of oil and gas from Azerbaijan through those provinces of Iran, then into Turkey. They also gain access to a lot of iron ore that's up there. You can see some of the more red colorations even in some areas that comes as a result of that. So that and iron ore is like one of the few self-sufficient industrial things that Turkey majorly lacks, because Turkey actually does have quite a lot, specifically in mineral deposit self-sufficiency. However, iron ore is one of like the critical things that they lack. They have they have chromium, so they can do the higher grade stainless steels and stuff. They have molybdenum. They have fluorspar. They have boron, so they're able to make like fiberglass and carbon fiber stuff. They have coal. They have oil and gas via Azerbaijan, a little bit of their own, and now also the stuff that they're uh, covertly semi-stealing from northern Syria. It's not a lot. It's only about 100,000 barrels a day, but it still adds in for them. And what else was I thinking of? Uh, Soda ash and limestone, so that they can do all the various in modern industrial chemical stuff that requires that. So iron ore is like one of the few things that they really lack. And all right, I think that's the totality for that, unless I'm forgetting anything specific. But yeah, then after that, years later, sometime in the 2030s, maybe not until the 2040s, eventually Turkey is going to go after northern Iraq, or just, even broader portions of Iraq, for the sake of gaining greater control over, global oil supply, because Iraq's going to be one of the last ones standing, so to speak. And also because Turkey or Erdogan just really wants to, restore the Ottoman Empire. That's everybody's thing right now. Putin is, after the restoration of the Russian Empire, not even the Soviet Union. He straight up said Russian Empire in his rambly grandpa supervillain speech at the start of the war. He straight up said, blood and soil, everything that once belonged to the Russian Empire belongs to Russia. And Xi Jinping wants to restore the Qing Empire. Uh, so, yeah, everybody's, my quote has been that everybody is just going for it now. Putin set off a chain reaction of idiocy, is what I'm going to call it. A chain reaction of narcissistic idiocy. So everybody is just going for it, just grabbing what they want to try to grab, even though they know they're going to fail in like most of their cases. Like there's no way like you would look at the thing rationally and assume you're going to succeed, but they're going for it anyways. And part of Turkey, part of Azerbaijan already doing this now, and part of Turkey semi covertly nudging them into doing this now so that Turkey can then do this, their thing with Iran soon, is because of, well, first, I'll show you Azerbaijan has, been able to buy a bunch of modernized military equipment, especially like Bayraktars and stuff, because of their oil and gas money that they've made over the course of time. However, their production is going down, and even as prices go up, their production is still going to be declining into the future and getting closer and closer to their own domestic consumption levels until they eventually cease exporting and thus cease raking in excess cash from that. So they're not going to be rolling in money forever. And also, for both of them, they have an issue in, let's go out, population. Start with Azerbaijan. So this is this is 3 years out of date. This is from 2020. Azerbaijan's not one of the important countries. There's a list of countries that get their population pyramids updated basically every year. About like 20 or 25 countries get theirs updated every year, and then the rest get them updated like once every 5 years. Azerbaijan is not on the important list, so this is going, inward, and it is still going inward. It has been over the last 3 years. So their fertility rate is continuing to decline. Their demographic situation is, flat up and down, kind of up until these last several generations, or sorry, these last several years, these last several age brackets. So at the present moment, they have this nice, better bulge here in, the upper 20s, early 30s, a decent enough military service age, and then this last like batch here before the inward curve starts happening. And then again, remember, you have to add 3 more years onto this and the continually drawn effects from that. And then Turkey is also actually kind of in a similar situation. Again, this is 3 years out of date, so continue the contraction inward like that, except make it more pronounced. It gets sharper over the last 3 years because Turkey, and this was data from them that I'll go to in a second. This was data from their statistics ministry. So if it was going to be biased data, it would be biased in their favor. Their fertility rate has actually accelerated its crash over the last 3 years, primarily because of first the COVID economic situation, then because of Turkey's downward economic spiral, which for quick reference, you can just look at the lira and boom, boom drop, take it back further, and yeah, down, 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 down. So that has been, that's kind of also been the state of Turkey's whole economy. So the outlook in Turkey has not been looking that great from the perspective of people who would otherwise be having children. So, they've been deciding more and more to not have children. And also, as Erdogan has won the election again and continued signaling that he's going to be going down this Ottoman villain spiral path, that has also continued to sour the social mood in the country. So so again, Turkey, as this contraction is actually getting a bit sharper and is going to keep going inwards, this is thus the double bulge that Turkey has to work with and would make it best to do things soon-ish. I think I screenshotted the stuff from the article, from the Turkey article. Was this the Turkey stuff or the last? There we go. Yep. Turkstat. Blah, blah, blah. Where was, all right, that's total births. Where was so the actual fertility rate for Turkey has now fallen down to 1.62. Whereas, where was it before the major update? Because this stops at 2020. Yeah, so it was already going down a bit quicker by about zero point zero 0.05 per year. However, now it has sped up to, instead of 0.05, it's a full it's a full zero point 0.1 per year for the last 3 years that it has gone down by, from 1.92 in 2020 down to now 1.62 in this year. So, uh, Turkey is not in a good spot in that regard. And there are ways to stall your fertility rate decline and even potentially make it go back up. There are things like, improving your country's economic conditions, trying to make life easier on people. However, doing that stuff is difficult and strenuous. What is seen as a much easier path is villain arcs and imperial glory restorations, and hoping that some epic conquest will suddenly reinvigorate the social attitude of your population, even though that's not really what happens. But that's the easier route mentally to defer to. So that's what that's what he's going for. That's what Putin started going for. Although Putin also has actual like clinical narcissism locking him into this decision. Xi Jinping, I have no idea. Xi Jinping is like is just out there somewhere. And then Modi over in India isn't going to be like attacking anybody. He's more after like internal fascism stuff, like oppression in Kashmir, and constantly cutting off the entire internet access in portions of the Punjab region, and just letting the ethnic violence in Manipur and Mizoram states between the different ethnic groups, basically just letting that on go and letting them fight and tear through each other, and not really stopping it, because that any damage they do to each other, any weeding out they do to each other, is ultimately good in his eyes for uh, what his preferred collection of ethnic groups in India would be, which doesn't include them. Okay, responsible streamer, check chat. Only one statement. Any super chats? No. Okay, time to chug some more water before we move onward. Okay, so before we get to the next big topic, let's do some random stuff. Uh, for one, the Netherlands is really stupid. You guys are pretty dumb. So this up here is Groningen, which is where a very large natural gas field was located that was previously outputting about 8 billion cubic feet per day, until the Netherlands decided to start shutting it down in the early 2010s. And they've gradually dialed it down to nothing. As of next week, the final bits of production will stop, the wells will be capped, and seriously, in their own words, go look up Netherlands Groningen and you'll see the article. They are going to demolish the facilities as like some kind of visual grandstanding action, some display of how green they are. Now, it's not entirely out of their greenness. It is also partially because they're just stupid, like a lot of people in the U.S. Midwest have been stupid and have been, saying, "Oh no, the natural gas field is causing earthquakes." So the world, sits on these tectonic plates. It sits on these gargantuan, colossally, unimaginably massive, both in terms of volume and in raw mass. Just slabs of material. You know, uh, not even trillions of tons, not even quadrillions of tons, beyond pentillions of tons. I think it's usually hexillions or septillions of tons, and is like uh, volumetrically is like thousands of kilometers wide, thousands of kilometers wide, and hundreds of kilometers deep. But people have this idea that drilling a number of holes that are like 20, 30 centimeters in diameter in the middle of this massive thing somehow causes movement in this massive thing. That's not how it works. You don't understand physics. And then they'll try to twist it into, well, no, uh it's because um uh the ground, it's resettling because you've upset too much of the sediment layers and it resettles. Even if it did that, it would not cause earthquakes. That's not the raw amount to which that would be dissipated in the sheer volume of mass under you. You can't comprehend this. I mean, you're proving that you can't comprehend this because you've kind of proven that you're stupid. So, and even this is especially hilarious to me as someone from Alaska. I've been through actual earthquakes, like real ones, uh, like mag 5 and up, like actually have the building shake. Actually had to evacuate buildings numerous times. And this is the stuff you guys are pulling in the Netherlands and people are pulling out in like Oklahoma and Kansas is the same nonsense that people down in my parents' area where I'm stuck now in South Carolina have been pulling since I was in high school, where there is a stress fracture fault here, and occasionally it gives off, like every few years, it gives off like something between a 2 and like a 3.2, maybe up to like a 3.5. Rarely it might go towards a 4, but like you no, you don't feel it. The people who say they feel it are people interviewed on the news after hearing that it happened, who then like have the psychological impulse to want to be included. So you'll say some nonsense about how uh and it's always the same story. I thought a truck was going by outside and I saw my dishes rattling. No, you didn't, because the stuff that small doesn't do anything. You would only notice a tiny bit of basic vibration in some really lightweight stuff on a shelf if your house was like completely still, if there was never any other like ambient stuff going on around you that you had like acclimated to, and your mind like kind of just incorporated into your natural expectancy, which in a populated area like this, one of the numerous reasons why I want to go back home, I don't like being surrounded by a million people. There are vehicles and stuff passing, there's construction work, there are things going on all around you all the time. That these literal microquakes would blend right into. And so what is actually happening is these kinds of things, and there's also stress fractures over here. These kinds of things have always been there. However, now, as all the fracking and oil and gas stuff became prominent in the media and was constantly put in front of people's faces, and then the earthquake stuff was thrown on top of it, then people started this circular feedback loop of association in their heads. And now every tiny little thing you feel is an earthquake. And even if it was legitimate, even if you were actually feeling these vibrations, for one, so what? They're not doing anything. Like they they spook you a bit. Because again, even if these were real, they're not real earthquakes. Get over yourselves. Dutch people always being weird. It's always the Dutch for some reason. Like you guys have an awesome airport. You have an awesome airline, KLM. You have an awesome port. But then you'll randomly get really weird about stuff. Also your language is like some crazy aberration thing. But yeah, even if even if I gave you the credence that okay, fine, you're actually feeling these, they're not doing anything, and the quote unquote risk to you of maybe a vase or a plate somehow eventually like falling on your head or something, that is far outweighed by the risk and quality of life reduction via higher energy cost, and the risk of like low gas supplies in winter for heating, that you're causing by cutting off this otherwise 8 billion cubic feet per day of gas supply to you and the nations around you. This is completely stupid. This is absolute idiocy. All right, got you guys out of the way. Okay, so then after that, well, I'll check chat in a second, but we're going to go down to Pakistan, uh, where we're going to talk about abject poverty and mass deportations. Blah blah blah. Yeah, it was over earthquake nonsense. I mean, if it's done directly under groundwater with no like cap rock in between them, then that is a concern. However, at least in here in the U.S. and in Canada, and especially in Europe, because they're way more uptight about everything, it doesn't get done unless there is a cap rock between the layers. Now, I can't speak for like I can't speak for other regions regulations like I don't know, Argentina or stuff over in China. I would especially call into question, but like it doesn't get done unless there is a cap rock layer there. Oh yeah, Pakistan. So Pakistan has now been backsliding really bad over the last year or 2 years or so, and they were down to only like 35% of their population living in extreme poverty. Now, over just the last year, that has slipped back up to 40%, because of how down spirally things have gotten in the country, and also, yeah, because the current regime, which is basically just military rule, since they ousted the prime minister and arrested Imran Khan, who would otherwise have run to be a potentially, other choice for prime minister. Basically, it's now under military rule, and they're primarily concerned with cementing their power, So they're not really managing the money properly, not really, making sure stuff like fuel shipments and food distribution happens to stores and shops like it's supposed to. So things are breaking down across the country, and also they're failing to pay their national bills. So they're not getting like a lot of the imports they require. So they're having fuel shortages both for power plants and for like fuel stations for cars, which has seen both electricity and fuel prices for fuel at like fuel pumping stations and electricity bills double over like just the last month or month and a half, which is kind of crippling the entire population because Pakistan is not exactly a high income country. And they're not getting bailed out by China like they used to because China is having its own financial internal issues that is eating up its money at the moment. So China has turned them away repeatedly now. They're not going to give them any more cash. Saudi Arabia said they would if Pakistan meets certain conditions. Pakistan has yet to meet those conditions, so that's probably not happening. The IMF said they would if Pakistan met their conditions. Pakistan is trying to meet their conditions via the worst possible ways, like ending the subsidies on fuel and electricity prices for their lowest income citizens, which kind of made the whole doubling prices thing even worse. So that's all not going all that great, and Pakistan kind of knows it's in trouble, and I guess wants to have as few people to have to deal with as it can, even though it's not really going to make that big of a dent. Because their population, as of this exact moment, is already about 233 million, including the 1 million Afghans that they are about to deport. But, anyways, the government in Islamabad has announced they are enacting an operation to deport the roughly 1 million Afghans that currently live in Pakistan and are going to shove them violently back across the border into Afghanistan. So, to drop their population from 233 down to 232, so that they have, one whole million less people that they have to be concerned with dealing with. Again, it's not really going to make a difference, but they're after it anyways. And since I mentioned it, China formerly has been, constantly handing out money and everything as kind of like a showmanship act, part of their like their stage play to put themselves out as a supposedly like even power player on the U.S. level. They are now no longer doing that. Their like loans and stuff and infrastructure project investments across Africa and all the other countries they constantly gave money have utterly collapsed in the last few years. For Africa in particular, I believe specifically for sub-Saharan Africa, over the mid and later 2010s, they were averaging between 25 and 29 billion dollars per year. Now they have dropped down to their total amount that they gave out or invested last year was less than 1 billion. So that is like a 95% plus collapse because China is having a bit too many internal issues that it's redirecting its financing towards. And even aside from that, it's directing too much stuff into trying to prepare for its eventual amphibious invasion attempt slash ultimate face plant that it's going to be trying for, which it has been doing more prep work. Another like I've been saying since last year, this year 2023 was very unlikely. It's almost certain they're not going to go for it this year. Next year, 2024 is the first year where I tip my expectations uh, over 50%. This year, only like 20% chance. I did heavily expect that they would, do another practice run, and they have been doing that. I showed you some of the stuff over the last several streams over the last few weeks that you can go back and see if you didn't before. But they have been practicing fleet maneuvers and carrier positioning out here, having one up here and one down here. And they were seen by our subs practicing rapid aircraft deployment from their aircraft carriers, or basically like launching two aircraft every like minute or so, trying to get them up as fast as possible. And they also did another force assembly practice run, which where footage was coming out from people in the area around Fujian province, showing full rail shipments rolling in fast with like tanks and armored vehicles and everything, and then intersections blocked out while they were maneuvering through the city, basically practicing moving the vehicles from the railway hubs or rail stations to the actual ports and harbors as fast and efficiently as possible. So they were practicing that a few weeks ago. And over the last few weeks, they have been doing daily waves, daily mass aviation incursions, the largest of which was not as large as the one back when they were practicing in April, but it was pretty large. It was like 120 aircraft over the course of several waves in a short period of time, a combination of a multi-role aircraft and ground attack stuff and some bombers as well. So they've been practicing everything, but like I would expect. But again, this year not likely. And whatever year they do choose to do it, it has to be in fall or autumn, whichever you choose to call it, because that is when the waters in the Taiwan Strait are the calmest, and obviously calm level waters mean a faster journey across water. So during fall, from the second half of August until roughly the end of November or early December, it would be about a 6-hour journey from mainland China across to Taiwan. Whereas during the summer and winter, it would be more like 7 to 8 hours. And during the spring, when the waters in the Taiwan Strait are the roughest, it would be close to 10 hours going across. And then obviously the ships also have to come back. So it's going to be in autumn. It's going to be in fall because that you have to do that if you have any intelligence. You need the shortest journey possible. All right, and we'll do the Myanmar stuff before I go into the population thing. So, did I? Was it an Bandicam thing or was it? No, it was an actual. Okay, it was an actual downloaded image. Excuse me. Load, please. Okay, where is it? Uh, no, that's 100% zoom. What about this one? Okay, this is the more zoomed in one, I believe. So, Myanmar here has been in and off and on civil war for like the last 50 years. And otherwise, you can see in its topography, do I have, oh, I do have individual Myanmar map. Okay, so you can see in its topography, because it has, the low-lying basin that's relatively enclosed with the one opening out to sea. It really should have a lot of oil and gas, and it does. It almost certainly does, because during the British like occupation there over the 1800s and early 1900s, similar to areas of Texas and some places in Pennsylvania over in the back in the 1800s and early 1900s, there were and still are places in Myanmar where there is oil visibly in fields out in fields in like grasslands seeping up from the ground like it did back in the day in Texas and Pennsylvania and stuff. So the indicators are clearly there, and oil production did actually start up after the British finally left, and they went up to like 70 or 80,000 barrels a day in the 60s, I think, or part of the 70s. However, then the Civil War started, and that was the end of the story. So they've basically done nothing since then because they've been in and out of civil war for the last 5 decades. And that civil war has renewed because after seemingly becoming stable slightly for a little while, the military brass in Myanmar back in 2020 or 2021 decided that democracy is lame and they're just going to commit a coup. So they ousted the president, they seized power, and now Myanmar is ruled by a military junta, but not for long, because especially over the course of this year, the rebels, the resistance forces, have been actually winning. They have been pushing the government forces out of the upper state here, this state here, and now portions of this state, and seemingly the entirety now of this state and strip down here. They're actually pushing them all the way out because partially Myanmar's one of Myanmar's primary suppliers of weapons and vehicles and stuff is Russia, and you know Russia's not doing that great. Russia's a bit occupied. Its resources are kind of sunk in elsewhere. So no spare parts, no new vehicles, no assistance has been coming for the junta in Myanmar. And so they have eventually, hit the point now where they don't really have that many heavy vehicles to work with on the ground anymore. So they are down to the point of being on even footing with the different rebel factions, in the fact that now it's basically just infantry versus infantry, plus some jeeps with like 50 cows mounted on the back. And the junta also has a few like Su-27s or is it the Su-27? I think maybe uh, that they were using to conduct ground strikes uh, to aid their forces. They were conducting ground strikes on the rebels. However, they've, you know, the aircraft have mysteriously disappeared. Like the rebels have noticed that the airstrikes have seemingly just stopped. With in the last 2 weeks, the junta has managed to conduct one airstrike in support of their forces just yesterday. But apart from that, the aircraft have just vanished from the skies. So as I was mocking last week, it's almost like it's almost like they're not getting anything anymore from Big Daddy up there, who turned out to not be a threatening figure, but actually just a colossal incompetent drunk. And so now the junta is basically screwed. And here, these markings, the red with white stars and red with black stars, those are military camps and or minor bases across this region that either the rebels have overrun and captured, or the junta has decided that they just can't hold them, which they basically decided of this entire region stretching up here, and so they've just left. So different colors mean different things. But so you can see the rebels are kind of literally winning. So it's for bad news for the military junta, obviously. It's kind of all hitting a downward spiral. But I mean, that's always how it ends, anyways. All right. Uh, check chat. Money. Thanks for covering the situation. Temporary to Myanmar, I'm assuming you mean? I've never heard it referred to under abbreviation. But I mean, yeah, I follow literally everything. Everything that's important. I mean, let me open a new tab. So if you go down my stuff, I have like one or two news things that are specific to each country that I got on Twitter. Oh, sorry, X. You can't see because I'm not a professional streamer. I don't have a webcam, but I'm actually crossing my forearms to make the X symbol. So here on X, I have, like one one like decent news feed from each country that I can actually like get a decent news feed or something from. As I try to follow stuff from like every area possible, but it's not entirely possible. And then I've managed to make some friends along the way who hooked me up with inside info connections, like my buddy Algerian spy here, and several friends I have in Russia who shall remain unnamed. Uh, I mean I've said like their general area that they live in. Like I have one who lives around here. I have one who lives around close to Volgograd. I have one who lives like over in Vladivostok. So I've gradually like I'm overinflating myself by referring to it as sources, but I've gradually gathered together sources of my own over the course of time. But I do try to relatively follow everything. Everything again of importance. Because for some people, for some countries, some of you, I'm looking at you, Argentina, and you, Brazil, literally, like these two, uh, you guys trouble me so much because I try looking at your news stuff, and like 90% of the articles are just about soccer slash football, since everyone outside the US, it's just football. So literally, like every single news article that comes out of you is just about football matches. I don't care about football matches. I want to hear like about actual things. Okay, so the actual world population, let's zoom out and view the world. A big, large spherical object that we reside upon. So you probably saw articles last year around sometime in November or October saying that the global population had hit 8 billion. However, as I showed you, that is, those news sites are literally just looking at population clock websites like this and just seeing when it hits a number and claiming that, that is now the thing. That's not how it works. The for one, again, I've been like following stuff since around 2014 or 2015. This site, Worldometers, really does not update their algorithms for any of the like, not just the population stuff, but any of their various clocks that you can watch. They only really update their algorithms like once every 5 years. So that's what the news was basing it on back when you heard it. However, that was not the case. Even even the UN's I forgot what they call the UN like UN Population Analysis Bureau or something like that. Even that population clock was saying was the source of their information, even though that's not true because those aren't the numbers that agency gave. Uh, the UN's like main population thing, even in September of last year, said that the world population was most likely at about 7.92 billion and was going to grow by a bit less than 80 million over the course of the next year, something like 77 or 78 million. So, between September and November of last year was not a whole year. That was 2 months. So population would not have gone from 7.92 billion up to 8 billion in those 2 months. But everybody, or at least the majority, are in consistent agreements of like constant adjusted data and everything that it was most likely around 7.92 or 7.93 at that time and is now the end of September, start of October, probably at 8 billion, like the UN's main actual population thing, because there are different ones inside the UN that are actually like different agencies. Um, the actual UN oversight thing, the U.S. Census Bureau, the International Database, the IMF, uh, the the World Advisory Office for something or another, something or another. That's a British phrase. I better not turn into a British person. All right. Was I missed? All right. No, a lot of that stuff from last week. I think I might have actually bookmarked some stuff here that was related to this. I just have to scroll through real quick and see. Actually, I have to scroll through faster to get back up here. Oh yeah, okay. Quick break, real fast before we continue with the population stuff. So this this is a this is a picture from near Dubai. That this is Dubai residences. This is like ultimate copy paste dystopian giga cringe. Like what is this? This is the kind of stuff you would expect to see out of China. But this is the dystopescape that is modern Dubai, apparently. Not the flashy skyscrapers where tourists go. This is outside that. This is where the people live. So yeah, this is fascinating, I guess. Okay, but anyways, scrolling back up, was there anything here that was related to it? Should we that? I don't think so. Think so. No, it's not looking like it. Okay. Uh, yes, you were referring to Myanmar. All right. Uh, uh get that nightmarescape off there. But so the thing is, for the different assessments and adjustments and everything, you have to keep factoring in different things, like in a lot of cases continually declining fertility rates, like many of the population clocks you'll see, or many of the more basic data gathering centers that then influence some of those population clocks just use algorithmic trends, like we saw in, for example, say Turkey's birth rate. They would look at the last 5 years or so, and they'll just algorithm out that that particular trend is going to continue. However, as you saw in the stuff I showed from Turkstat earlier, Turkey's fertility rate actually dropped a decent bit more over the last 3 years than the 5 years prior. So, stuff changes like that all the time. And then you have Russia and China's abysmal fertility rate collapses that you can't see yet on these things on the initial Google search because those stop at 2020. But that's, we have the data for. So you have, stuff like those precipitous drops. China's is particularly visible just in the actual like birth numbers. I can get that chart. Where was that chart? Where was that chart? Did I put it in population stuff? Maybe. Population. Is it in here? No? I know it's here. It's here somewhere. Where did I put it? I should know what it looks like shape-wise. So, oh, there it is. So yeah, after China started going like full hardcore mega totalitarian over the last like 4 years or so, you can see they're just going off a cliff. And they got to 9.6 or 9.7 million births last year, and it looked like this is a shallower drop than this one was. So it looked like we thought they were only going to drop from like 9.6 down to maybe 9 or maybe 8.9 this year. However, it took an even bigger drop this year apparently because the first half of the year data came in for China, and instead of the expected 4.5 million births that would thus add up with the second half of the year and give about 9, and thus a drop from 9.6 down to 9, less than 4 million children were born in China in the first half of this year, which would thus imply a mirrored half in the second half of this year, which would result in the total birth number in China this year just abruptly dropping from 9.6 down to 8 or less than 8. So that would imply that even beyond my expectations, China's actual current fertility rate, as of the start of this year, it was down to, depending on which one you look at, between 1.05 and 1.09. If that total births number ends up being like correct and they come in more around 8, like a million lower than expected, that would mean China's fertility rate would have plummeted below 1 and even below 0.9. And so that would put them in line with, before this is all said and done, especially with Taiwan coming up, they're probably going to just abysmally crash even lower than South Korea, who got as low as 0.78 and has actually stopped declining and has crept up a tiny bit. Like different sources dispute, but either 0.79 or 0.8. China, I've been saying before this is all said and done, is likely going below 0.75. But yeah, you have all that to add up. And then for the last few years in particular, you also have to account for all of the excess deaths that there would not otherwise have been. Like over the course of 2022 in particular, you had 1 million or so people starve to death in Ethiopia, particularly in the Tigray region. You also had several 100,000 people starve to death in Somalia. And since August of last year, roughly a million or so people have starved to death in Afghanistan because of the Taliban's inability to manage anything and distribute food or run an economy that can make money to buy food and import food to thus then distribute. So that has happened. And also, because of how disrupted everything is in Myanmar, it is effectively now locked in that about 600,000 people, so more than 500,000 people in Myanmar over the next like half a year or so are going to starve to death. That's effectively been locked in because stuff has so broken down because the junta just can't do anything, and not that they actually care to like want to feed everybody anyways, but that's all breaking down. Plus, then there's still other stuff like the war in Ukraine and the earthquake in Turkey early this year that killed around 50,000 people. The all the thousands that died in Libya, the thousands that have been killed in the crossfire between the two sides of the civil war in Sudan. The numbers that we know of are just civilian casualties that have been killed inadvertently in crossfire. Neither of the actual sides, neither of the two sides in the Sudanese civil war, will actually release their own military casualty numbers. So we all we know about is that like 5 or 6 thousand civilians have been killed in crossfire. We don't know about like how many people military wise have died in the actual fighting, and also the amount of people that have either died from treatable diseases that now can't be treated because of the disruption, because of the civil war, or who have starved to death because of disruptions because of the civil war. So you have all this stuff stacking up, and the only clock that is relatively close is the one that's maintained by the U.S. Census Bureau. It's close enough, and is they do update this actually on a yearly basis. They will change the stuff every year. Granted, of course, it's still off. It's still ahead of itself by a bit, by like 1, maybe 2 million. And also, part of that is because again, they can't they're not like adjusting that in real time because partially you can't. So they can't keep up with that in real time as like these excess mass death events are happening. But also, even just a bit of their estimations are also just a little bit ahead of where they should be. But if you want, if you just like seeing like the numbers tick and having a thing to constantly look at, the population clock from the U.S. Census Bureau is the closest one to what I would say is like relatively the most likely accurate. Although even the U.S. Census Bureau one, like I said, is still probably 1 or 2 million ahead of itself. So the world population is now or will be within the next week or so actually hitting 8 billion. And my call is that global population is going to peak around mid 9. It's not going to get beyond 9.7. Whereas the various whoa, what did you just do? Fix yourself, please. The various population projections that you'll see from a lot of organizations and statistics departments worldwide have adjusted themselves over the course of time. Like in the 90s, it was expected that world population would peak around 12 billion. In the 2000s, it was expected more like 11. In the 2010s, they adjusted that to like 10 and a half. And most recently, now in the early 2020s, they have adjusted their expectations down to more like 10.3 or 10.4. However, mine are that a like mine are that it's going to end up being more like mid nines, with very unlikely to exceed 9.7. The U.S. By the end of this year will hit about 336 million. And previously, like when I remember in elementary school, the expectation was that the U.S. was going to go up to like 500 million, which I would dread. Then it got adjusted by the time I was in high school to more like 400 million or the lower 400 millions. Then by the end of the 2010s, it was down to like 390. Now, the most recent one I saw from like the US Census Bureau itself expects around 370 to 380. Whereas my expectation for the US is like 367 or so. And again, barring any extreme events, it would stay around that level sort of for a given time before going one way or the other. like a couple decades later, based on how whether immigration rates are adjusted up or down after that. Excuse me. Okay, we are still moving. All right, anybody else? I woke up in a new what? Yeah, South Korea is not in the best position. Uh, were they one of the ones I got a new one of? I think. No, that's Italy. That's the U.S. That's Australia. Like standing wise, the U.S. is pretty fine. Because we have straight up and down. Primarily, that maintenance comes from immigration. The last few year brackets down here start to curve in, and I've talked about this a lot of times before. That's because immigrating families tend to not immigrate while their children are like infants or toddlers. They tend to most of the time they will wait until the youngest child is at least four. For f- three three people whose families immigrated here to the U.S. that I know of. One immigrated when the youngest child was six. Another immigrated when the youngest child was uh, was either three or four, I forget, and another when the youngest child was five. So that's why you see and it's not just the U.S. For countries that do have like a decent immigration maintenance level, you will still see that intick there. Even for countries that have decent immigration maintenance and also have a birth rate at replacement level, you would still see that intick right at the bottom because of the factor that I just described. But uh, this is this is the latest one for the U.S., which is from mid-July of 2022. So you have the in dip from COVID, but then after that you had a rebound back to basically the same number of children born as 2019. And the U.S. Fertility rate is actually climbing back up by a little bit, not by like a huge amount, but U.S. had dropped down to U.S. had gradually dropped down to about 1.6 over the last 10 or 15 years after staying right at about 2 or 2.1 from uh, from the 60s all the way through up until like the mid 2000s. So a lot of that downward turn was because of the 2008 financial crisis and the aftermath of it. However, the U.S. got as far down as 1.6, but over the last 3 or 4 years, it has actually gone back up, not by that much, but from 1.6 back up to either 1.67 or 1.68, depending on which source you look at. So it seems to be climbing back up to 1.7, and I think the Census Bureau's expectation is that it's going to curve out there and kind of flatten at midway between 1.7 and 1.8, so like 1.75. So it's climbing back up to where France has dropped down to and flattened at, which is around 1.8 or so, I believe. But oh yeah, South Korea was the one that the chatter brought up. Excuse me, can you please actually do what I'm telling you to? Thank you. Population. Okay, South Korea, SK. There we go. Whoa, that is way too zoomed in. Now, again, this is from 2020. They do have a more recent one. I'm just too lazy, so I haven't gotten it for you yet. I do apologize for that. But yeah, this is South Korea's arrangement, which is bad. Then there's also China's arrangement is also pretty bad. Oh man, I forgot how small this is. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot how small this was. I don't know what I did with the larger version of it. But the 2023 one has come out, and I guess I forgot to take a screenshot of it because I'm that incompetent. But yeah, this is China's. So you have these two big wings, sudden inward contraction, and then this annihilatory, abysmal inward drop. You had the lesser decline that year. However, the most recent one is sudden, sharper one. So coming in to basically remove that excess blue there and come into where the lighter blue starts, and you'd get the most recent bar. And also, China is China's also like doubly screwed because of the whole insane male to female ratio thing they have going. Since abortion became widely available in China, because everyone wants to have a male child to carry on the family name or whatever. So now you're getting this huge disparity of males to females, which means the actual like ability of demographic maintenance is being even further degraded, even on top of just the already catastrophically dropping fertility rate in and of itself. So yeah, world at the moment is now actually rated about 8 billion or so, and likely to peak or around the 9.5 area. And I will seriously say no higher than 9.7. All right, what else do we have on here? All right, not much is actually left on the list. Let me look at chat again. Nothing I need to respond to. Okay, let me, as I'm briefly scrolling, just see if there's anything here I forgot to put on the list. I don't see anything I'm missing. Oh yeah, wait, I forgot all the hilarious Russia stuff that they've been pulling out. So Russia is really like I was dead serious about Putin being about the Russian Empire, not even the USSR, but the Russian Empire. So he wants to bring back one of the various I guess back in the Russian Empire, instead of Hitler Youth they had like Imperial Youth schools or something, and he wants to bring those back. So we're going places. And did I favorite it here? I don't think I did. Yeah, it's looking like I didn't, so I'll have to go dig for it. Oh, yeah. And so Putin's propaganda has reached new fascinating levels. He is now relying on grandmas. This is his grandma army plus one grandpa in the middle there. So this is his grandma army that makes appeal videos for him about how not even they're not even talking about the U.S. They're talking about Canada, about how Canada needs to be destroyed. So his propaganda's hitting new levels. Oh yeah, and the utter callousness for from Russia's like finance ministers towards the population, because people have actually been complaint despite Putin saying prices of things haven't been affected by sanctions. Prices aren't rising in Russia. The Russian people say differently because, they're the ones who actually have to pay for things. And so they've been complaining. And this guy, Russia's finance minister's response was, if you don't buy, prices are fine. If the price is too high, just don't buy it. Just starve yourself. And yeah, their various their computer systems and internal management stuff is starting to break down. Here in particular, it was the network, like the ticketing network and stuff for their airlines, for their civil aviation industry, and yeah, even Russia's like propaganda shows have actually come to the point of admitting that stuff isn't right. Like Solovov here demanding to know why the gasoline prices are so high. So it's finally surfacing. And I think I'm gonna have to scroll down through a few days to find what I was looking for, to find the most hilarious thing. Nord Stream, this chick, uh, Imperial School, all right, where is it? Where is it? It was uh, Kadyrov, the Grandma Squad, blah, blah. Come on, where's the thing that I'm actually looking for? It has to be here. Have, just keep scrolling, just keep scrolling. It'll come about eventually. All right, I know it had Solovov's face on it. I'm pretty sure, so that should make it easy to spot. Looking for Mr. Solovov. Where are you hiding? Dang, man, how far down was it? Bryansk? No, that's not it. There we go. There we go. Okay, so the whole, quiet exodus of Russians, skilled Russians, smart, skilled Russians from Russia, has now even hit Russia's like main propaganda news channel thing. They're running short on on technicians for their media hardware and their cameras and lighting and stuff. So they've had to reduce their hours because they can't they can't find enough qualified technicians to actually help run the propaganda show during their former like normal length of runtime. So even that has now started to be hit. All right, I think that might be it. Maybe. What else is on here? Oh, almost, almost. In one bit of good news, uh, someone making smart power decisions, unlike many of their European neighbors, Polska, has decided to actually go positive towards nuclear power. And very shortly, construction will begin of Poland's first nuclear power plant, and likely going to be their only one because their population is declining, and even aside from that, already their electricity demand isn't that high compared to some of their neighbors, but their plant should be finished around 2030 or a bit later. And as of current, the plans can change. Uh, they can be adjusted to add more reactors if necessary, or if desired. But the plan is for, I believe, four reactors, each of which, as standard, will be like roughly somewhere around 1.5 gigawatts. So it's going to be, at least as intended for the moment, a 6 gigawatt power output nuclear plant. Uh, not the thermal rating, but the electricity output rating. But it could be adjusted to incorporate additional reactors. But as for the moment, it's just the initial four that are intended. So that will make its way into being over the next 7 to 8 years or so. And then any additional electricity demand growth Poland has over that time can eventually be soaked up by that. Uh, whereas for power in Poland is at the moment still predominantly coal fired. They've been getting pressured from all sides to switch over to not even natural gas, but explicitly to switch over to wind and solar. But Poland isn't that stupid, thankfully. So Poland is going the nuclear direction, which is the much better direction, instead of the solar panels and wind turbines and grid batteries direction. And also, Poland does have the the required sediment and strata layers underground if they wanted to do like actual carbon capture stuff from their coal-fired power plants. Which the proper way to do it is not what people actually think it is. You see, what we can do that would be a little bit more expensive, but not entirely, is you can, as long as you have like the proper geological layers to do it, close enough to the surface, preferably, you can drill down and have a piping system, a well system to inject the emissions from your coal-fired power plants into different types of rock formations, from which the chemicals, both the CO2 and the other chemicals in the emissions, will interact with and will precipitate out uh, desired things, desired like chemicals that you want. Like depending on the types of rock layers, we can actually uh, a you can call it artificial, but it's still the same reaction that would be taking place underground anyways, just over a much longer geological timescale. But people will probably refer to it as artificial. Uh, but so we can basically, via venting those emissions, particularly the denser coal emissions down through those certain types of rock layers, we can actually artificially generate lime, which we would get from limestone, uh, you know, and avoid a bunch of like mining operations in that regard. And we can also get stuff to precipitate out a bunch of other things, like various magnesium compounds from the rocks, from which we then would get magnesium metal, and also a few others that I don't immediately recall. I think actually soda ash. I think that's one of them that we can kind of via the CO2 ground injection, if the proper strata layers are there and are permeable enough, we can also like brute force the soda ash formation process. But there are a number of different like chemical end products that we can actually get out of that, that doing so would then circumvent like a bunch of mining operations as well. But no one is interested in things like that, or in nuclear power, or in anything actually reasonable. Everyone just wants to spam solar panels, absorb the world's entire supply of silver, which it doesn't have, and then pretend somehow that there is enough nickel on this earth and enough lithium to make an endless amount of grid scale batteries because we are just really intelligent. Really, really intelligent. But anyways, that is it from me for this one then, since we've hit the end of the list of stuff. So I'll wait like a minute to see if anything comes up from chat or not. And then I will head off. Excuse me. Thank you. Move when I tell you to, Google Earth. Alaska, the best state, also the best country. My home, Fairbanks, I'd love to get back to. There's the Kinross operated Fort Knox gold mine up here. You can see all the different safety benches or safety shelf layers there. Zoom in close enough, you can see the haul trucks and the massive giant excavators, or usually now just called mining shovels. All right, looks like that's going to be it. All right, so I will see you guys definitely for the regular stream next week. I might do a second one, not a like events and stuff type stream, but a different type of stream. Uh, Basically, I might start doing occasional secondary streams in place of what would otherwise be really long videos because I just kind of because I'm lazy and doing it as a stream basically gives me the excuse of avoiding all the hours of editing work. But we'll see. I'll be back for the next regular one at least. And also I'll try to get the shale shale play production levels video out and the electricity demand levels video out. The electricity one got really delayed by certain countries not releasing their data, like Spain. I'm looking at you guys, and Kenya, looking at you guys too. I need people to actually release their data if I'm gonna, report on it. But I'll try to get those out. And either way, I will see you next time.